Welcome back. This one's going to be long because I'm playing catch up, so buckle in. Ready? Chapter 16. As Etta put her bag by the front door, she reminded herself that she needed to call the airport about the big suitcase she'd left behind. Sitting beside her carry-on was a box she packed with food and drinks. With most places closed, they'd have to take their own food. Zach returned an hour and 10 minutes after he left. "You're late," she said, and he grinned. He had a camera bag that looked like it weighed as much as a side of beef. She kissed Henry goodbye, then Zach told him that, yes, he'd take many photos and yes, he'd make notes. Etta added that she'd record her impressions. After they answered all Henry's questions, they left. Outside at Zach's Bronco, he made a mistake of asking Etta if she needed help getting in. After all, it was high off the ground. She gave him a look that made him step back, then she got in easily. Zach knew the way and they traveled south. It was Kansas, so there were farmland interspersed with big homes shaded by huge trees. Sometimes they passed barns and houses. "If you were Henry, we'd stop and take photos of those," Zach said. "He's working on a book of pictures titled Lost Kansas." "Sounds like a good project. When will it be done?" "If Henry does half of what he's planned, he'll have to live to be 120. But then he'd come up with more things to do, so he need to be immortal." "That's all right with me," Etta said. He smiled in agreement. "So tell me about yourself." As they drove, she told him about her father, sister, brother-in-law, and Nola. "And you all live together in one house?" She started to say the usual about how wonderful it was, but she stopped. In her dreams, she had a taste of having her own family, and she finally understood why Alicia had readily agreed to move away. "Sorry," Zach said at her silence. I didn't mean to stir up anything bad." "You didn't. It's just that staying with Henry has made me think about things." She did add, "Not to mention that traveling back in time has turned everything in my life upside down." She wanted to change the subject. "Your ancestors, who was saved by the doctor, must have married." "Yeah, sure." "What was his wife's name?" "I have no idea. I know he lived to be 96 years old. But wait, I think my father once told me his wife was named Fred. I was a kid and I thought that was a funny name for a girl. Could it have been Freddie? Like the girl you called to take care of Henry? That would be a big coincidence, wouldn't it?" "Lately, my life has been nothing but coincidence. I wonder if Freddie and Rufus were a match that I missed," she thought. She always heard that ladies of the evening were sought after as wives back then, so maybe Rufus was looking for a bride. She wondered if they got together after she left. Freddie had been hired to work in the garden, so she was there every day, and so was Rufus. It made sense. "You're looking very serious," Zach said. "Want to share?" "I was thinking about the past. What did you have on your farm, besides cows, that is?" "No cows. I grew broccoli and corn and carrots. Lots of things. Like Freddie does." Etta was smiling. "Do you miss it?" "Sometimes. Are you planning to stay here in Kansas and get your own place?" She started to reply, but Zach turned down a gravel road. "Are we near Garrett?" "Yes." Minutes later, he stopped the car and they got out. As the ghost town book said, there was nothing left. It was just flat, wind-whipped grassland. Zach took out the camera and began snapping while Etta walked around. It was difficult to imagine what had once been there. Unlike Max, she didn't have a built-in gyroscope in her mind, so she couldn't orient herself. She looked for where the train rails had been, but Henry had told her that used train tracks were dug up and hauled away to be laid elsewhere. The building had all been thrown up quickly, so there was no remnants of stone foundations. There seemed to be a bit of a dip in the ground, so maybe it was where the main road through town had been. If so, was the Red Dog here? Was the Garrett Emporium, where she brought the paint set for Nellie, over there? Was the church at the end? You look like you're trying to find something, Zach said. Just imagining what it was probably like. It's hard to believe there isn't anything left. I bet if we use a metal detector, we could find things, coins and lost watches and wagon parts. And are you all right? Maybe this place is getting to you. I'm fine, Etta said. I think that if we head that way, we'll find where the house was. Zach had a map in his back pocket. We'll have to go around. Will this be the river and the sod house? No, there's somewhere else. But if I can find the house, I could ride to the homestead. I'm not sure my car can go across the land. No, Etta said. I ride on a horse. She knew Zach was staring at her, but she didn't say any more as she went back to the car and got in. He was excellent with directions, and he found where she thought the house had probably been. There was nothing left, just flat grass-covered land. Not even any of Freddie's plants are left, she said softly. This is the woman taking care of Henry? No, not here, not now, but yes, it is her. She was trying to get her good mood back, but she couldn't. How could a town be totally wiped out? Stores, houses, even the railroad were completely gone, erased, as if they never existed. Zach turned to her. I don't have a horse with me, but if you point the way, I'll try to find the old homestead. Sometimes those places have been preserved by a local historical society. Maybe so. There was no hope in her voice. Zach took out the map and looked at it. I don't know about you, but I'm hungry. I brought food. I'd like something cold to drink and hot to eat. How about if we look around the area to find something that's open? Etta shrugged. It didn't matter to her. Let's see. The nearest town seemed to be a place called Kecklin. It's not much, but what? Food, he said. Lunch. We can. No, the town. What's the name? Kecklin. Kecklin? Etta whispered, then louder. John Kecklin? She looked at Zach. Go, hurry. She was frantically searching in her bag for her phone. Zach drove back onto the road. It's here. Etta was looking at her phone. There's a website for it. It's a tiny, unincorporated town. No mayor, no courthouse, no. She halted. It has a local museum. She could barely speak. It's in a house built in 1876. The owner is Miss Bella Kecklin, and her great-grand-uncle John Kecklin built the house. She spent her last collecting local history artifacts. She never married, never, Etta trailed off. I love this woman, deeply and truly love her. Oh, no. What is it? The museum is closed due to the lockdown. Etta's eyes widened. Maybe we can find a window and get in through there, or the roof might have. Call Henry, Zach said loudly. Right now. Call him. He knows everyone in Kansas who's involved in anything historical. She pulled up Henry's number and called. Just so you know, Zach said, I do not break into houses no matter what's inside. Okay, but sometimes there are things that you must do. They're necessary. Henry answered his phone. She didn't bother with formalities. John Kecklin, remember him? Cornelia's father? Wants to own Kansas, right? He answered. Yes, there's a Kecklin, Kansas, and they have a museum in an old house, but it's closed for this lockdown. Henry didn't hesitate. I'll see what I can do. I know people. He clicked off. Etta looked at Zach. Go, her eyes said. Kecklin was very cute, with a main street lined with old houses under huge shade trees. There were a few stores, all tastefully inserted into old buildings. Unlike many historic towns, the old places hadn't been flattened in the 60s and rebuilt in ugliness. It was a charming little Kansas town. Only the filling station with the convenience store was open. and Zach pulled up to a pump. I better fill up while I can. I'll pay for the gas, she said. His look told her no. For the first time, he pulled a mask out of a box and put it on. As she watched him enter the little store, she thought how much she liked Kansas and its residents. Sane, sensible people with their feet on the ground. She hadn't thought of it before Zach mentioned it, but she could imagine living there. He returned with a bag full of cold drinks and hot sandwiches. While he gassed the car, she spread the food out. He got in, drove to the shade, and they ate. How much aren't you telling me? He asked. There was too much for her to say, and besides, it was all unbelievable. A man Henry's age with his imagination was one thing, but Zach would be full of disbelief. It's just a story Henry is writing. It's quite complex. And you're so involved in it that when you see where some town used to be, it makes you look like your dog died. Etta filled her mouth with food, more or less. She could see that Zach knew she wasn't telling him everything, but she couldn't risk blabbing. He brought chocolate oatmeal bars for dessert, and as they were opening them, Etta's phone rang. It was Henry. Yes, she said. Thank you. Yes. He'll take photos. Yes, certainly. She put the phone down. The door has been unlocked, and we can stay as long as we want. Great, Zach said. Now, we just need to find it. The house was at the far end of the town. It was big and gaudy Victorian, with a huge tower in the middle. There was a large round stained glass window at the top, the only thing of beauty in the outlandish house. It was a house made to impress, not for beauty. Zach parked in front of it. Cornelia didn't design this, Etta said. She has more taste. And who is Cornelia? John Kecklin's daughter. I hope she and Bert moved to Kansas City. Etta quickly got out and shut the door. She practically ran away from Zach's common questions of who and how. No wonder he and Henry got along so well, as they both insatiably curious. Of course, it didn't help that Etta kept saying odd things. Inside the house was the usual heavy, dark Victorian furniture. As with nearly all museums, it had no feeling of being lived in. Alice sometimes left her shoes in the living room. Max would toss his hat wherever he went. There was no Kansas mud, and the rug had no worn spots, and there were no smells anywhere. Etta picked up a fold-out history from a table next to a donation box. She put a 20 in the box. The brochure glorified John Kecklin. It said he was a saint of a man, a philanthropist, and an all-round good, pure man who bettered the entire world. Zach was reading the brochure. Wow, no wonder Henry's writing about him. He sounds like a great guy. He was a megalomaniac who bullied his daughter mercifully. But then, if he hadn't, I wouldn't have, she stopped. Wouldn't have what? Marry Max, she didn't say. Wouldn't have found him so interested, she lied. Here's the Cornelia you mentioned. He looked at her. She married a lawyer named Bertram Lord, and they moved to Kansas City. He looked back at the brochure. It says Cornelia designed several houses in Kansas City. Wait a minute. Did they build Henry's house? Yes. Etta was glad to have a reason for Henry's interest. It sure beats saying time travel. Now I'm beginning to understand his latest obsession. Etta put the brochure in her pocket. Henry wants photos. Sure. Zach pulled out his big camera. Etta left him behind as she began to explore. It was great to be in a museum alone. She went to the kitchen and opened cabinets, picked up things and put them down. Everything was so sterile and clean, not like what she'd experienced at Mac's house. The absence of abundant water certainly did change hygiene. Leading out of the kitchen was a steep, narrow staircase for servants. She'd never met John Kecklin, but she formed an opinion of him. He wasn't a man who'd want to help. want the help to be in his sight. She went up the stairs to a long hallway. There were several closed doors. One of them were toward the front of the house. Keklin would probably demand that his bedroom oversee what was going on in the town. She opened the door, then gasped. On a mannequin was Cornelia's riding outfit. The green wool had faded, but it was still beautiful. A little placard said that Cornelia Keklin had worn it to a speech given by her father in 1874. She wouldn't have worn her riding dress to a speech, Etta muttered. And where's her mean little whip? Her voice echoed in the room. She wanted to rewrite the placard. By 1874, surely Cornelia and Bert had left town, but which town did she leave? Garrett, or the one Etta had never heard of? She wondered what John Keklin had taken from Garrett to build this town that was named after him. And why had this town survived but Garrett hadn't? After I left, what did Max and Alice do? She wondered. Alice probably went away with Pat and Nellie, so Max would have been left alone. Did he sell his empty house and move somewhere else? She didn't want to think about that. She wanted to believe that she added to people's lives, not taken from them. And maybe she had, but not with Max. He was a quiet man and his feelings ran deep. If Etta disappeared, never arrived on the train, he wouldn't recover from that. Hey, Zach said from the doorway, you look like you're in a trance. Just thinking. Be sure to photograph this outfit. Have you seen a riding crop around here? Actually, I did. It's hanging on the wall of the little bedroom. I'm going to go see. She hurried out of the room. She opened 3 doors before she found the small bedroom at the end. It didn't have a bed, but was filled with old things. She knew that half of them wouldn't have been used in 1871, but what did that matter? They could put in a desktop telephone and kids today would think it was from the 18th century, she said, then shook her head. Etta, you are getting old. She slowly walked around the room, looking at the objects. By the door was a sign, Cornelia Keklin Lloyd. Below it were things that had belonged to her. As Zach said, the riding crop was on the wall. There was a glass case, and in it was the beautiful parasol that Alice had made for Etta. It was open to show that one of the panels had been cut and never repaired. There was a card beside it, property of Miss Cornelia Keklin, given to her by her illustrious father, John Keklin. The cut is believed to have happened when Miss Cornelia fell at a town picnic put on by her father. A young lawyer, Bertram Lloyd, saved her from striking her head. This heroic act eventually led to their marriage. Etta let out a snort of derision, and novelists think they created fiction. Part of her wanted to take the parasol. It belonged to her, not to Cornelia. She also wanted to put the riding crop with the green dress, but Etta did neither. She was a guest and had no right to change anything. She found Zach and told him to photograph everything in the last bedroom, especially the parasol. Henry will want to see that. She went down the wide front stairs and left the house. She couldn't bear any more of the twisted glorification of John Keklin. Zach came out later. I took photos of every inch of the place. I'll do the outside if you don't mind waiting. Go ahead. There were chairs on the porch and she sat down in one. Only one car drove by and she thought of the changes during this lockdown. But if she hadn't been caught in it, she wouldn't have met Henry and she wouldn't have met Max. When Zach returned, they went to his car and got in. Where to now? I like to see the homestead, but I don't know how to get there. Except on a horse, he said. We know approximately where the house was, so close your eyes and describe how to go on a horse. I'll follow you on a map and see what I can find. She did as he said, then opened her eyes and he was grinning broadly. You have led us to a place called Garrett Creek. She returned his smile. Let's go. He started the car and pulled out. Minutes later, he stopped. The road had ended, but before them, she could see the place she knew so well. She flung open the door and started running. Zach closed behind her. Nature hasn't changed, she said. The rocks are the same. The water is less, but it's here. The trees are nearly the same. This is where, she didn't say more than that. Zach was looking at a nearby hill. The side house was over there. Yes, they walked together to it, but there was no sign of what had been there. The roof and walls had long ago collapsed, and Kansas rain and abundant plant life had filled it in. Give me a backhoe, and I bet we would find lots of stuff inside. Cans of peaches. She turned away to look back at the stream. It hadn't been long ago that Alice and Pat had been there. Nellie was to the side with her new paint set. When Max got there, he expertly finished the painting. He'd been so angry with Alice and Pat and... You're hypnotized again, Zach said. We have drinks in the car. How about I get them and we sit by the water? That would be nice. He left and she went to the place where Alice and Pat had sat and laughed. She couldn't help scanning the area to see if anything had been left behind. Alice's shoes, she thought, and smiled. Zach handed her a drink and sat down on the rock. It's quiet here. I can see why you like it. It seems to be a local makeout spot. He nodded to a tree where initials had been carved. I better take a picture of that or Henry will beat me up. Etta smiled. She felt like she never wanted to leave. Zach walked around, taking many photos. He moved branches and weeds. When a pile of rocks fell, he jumped back, then snapped a photo of the pile. Etta, he said softly, look. She turned towards the rocks. In the place that had been hidden, she saw that some letters had been chiseled into the stone. That says Etta, Zach said. No, it doesn't. She stood up and looked at it from another angle. It was worn and faded, but it did seem to be her name. She clawed away rocks and plants. Below the name was an arrow pointing downward. Zach was beside her. There are two more letters, an N and the A. Nellie Adams. Etta sat back on the ground and stared at it. I'll be right back. Zach put down the camera bag, ran to the car, and returned with a small hand shovel. He held it up. Once a farmer, always a farmer. Step back. I'm going to dig. He dug down about half a foot before he found anything. He held the shovel out, full of dirt and gravel. Something was sticking up. When Etta saw it, she knew what it was. It was the little iron bear that Pat had made. He and Nellie gave it to her when she and Max left for their journey. It's, she said. Do not cry, Zach said. Please do not cry. I'm not good with women in tears. Etta swallowed, blinked a lot, and took the bear out of the dirt on his shovel. She washed it in the stream. It had holes of deterioration, and it was rusty. But Etta thought it was beautiful. She clutched it to her heart. Looks like it was buried there for you, he said, buried a long, long, long time ago. His expression was of astonishment mixed with some anger. He was realizing what he suspected. There were things he hadn't been told and lies that he had been told. They sat in silence for a while. When Zach stood up, Etta realized that it was getting dark. We can try to find a motel that's open, or we can drive back to Henry in KC. It'll take hours. Her eyes answered him. She wanted to go home, to Henry, to wherever the connection to Max was. Maybe tonight she'd dream of him. Maybe she'd return to her long ago family. In the car, with the dark outside and quiet inside, too many memories were coming back to her. She looked at Zach. Tell me things you and Henry have done together. Where did you go on the road trips? As in the past, Zach was a good storyteller. Best of all, he distracted her from her memories. The next morning, Etta was last to get up. The door to the bedroom Zach had used was open, and the room was empty. Downstairs on the table in the hall was a box of vegetables. It looked like Freddie was also up. Did she and Zach find each other? Etta thought, smiling. She found Henry in the library, his notebook open on his lap. How far along are you? She and Henry rarely indulged in small talk. He grinned. Wyatt Earp was just rescued. Tell me again how handsome he was. Not nearly as good looking as Max. Shorter, shoulders more narrow, neck kind of scrawny. Eyes that were, she broke off. Henry's eyes were twinkling. Brat, you have anything for me to type? Some, not much. She looked towards the open door. Did you send them away? I don't hear anything. Last I saw, they were outside staring at each other over tall drinks. Their eyes were full of stars. Seems that Henrietta has yet again shot the love arrow. She laughed. Cynic. I assume you know that he's Rufus and she's the local. Etta waved her hand. Max, go to girl? That's something we don't speak of. Have you been fed and watered? Actually, no. Those two look at each other and I no longer exist. He gave a melodramatic sign. You poor thing, she stood up. Anything new from Ben and Caroline? How's the baby? I'll bring up my email. You'll have breakfast done by the time the internet engages. She started out of the room. Very funny. I can't wait to hear the connection shaking hands through your 30-year-old router. Smiling, she went to the kitchen to make breakfast. She could see Zach and Freddie sitting outside. They did indeed seem fascinated with each other. Etta made good old Southern biscuits, then took some with butter and jam out to them. She didn't say a word as she set the plate on the table, but then they didn't notice her. She took eggs, bacon, and biscuit to the library to share with Henry. Thank you, he said. They settled down to what had become normal, spending the day together in the library. After the road trip, her restlessness was gone. She was going through Zach's photos, and Henry was writing and editing. He was content. When Zach and Freddie came to say they were leaving to go see her garden, Henry cleared his throat in a way that made Etta cut a look at him. Have fun, Etta told them. When they left, she looked at Henry. You are a dirty old man. Hearing about you and Max is leading me astray. Breech cloths hold all new meaning for me. She shook her head in despair of him, but she was laughing. By afternoon, they received baby photos, and Carolyn wrote that she thought Henry's new story was the best thing he'd ever written. Your heron and her knife are magnificent. You should have carved her on the oak desk. Etta grinned in pride, while Henry looked at her in that way that said he was thinking hard. No, you can't tear out the back of the desk and redo it. It's beautiful as it is, Etta said. The truth was, she didn't think he was steady enough to safely handle chisels. She worried that he seemed to be getting weaker and less active each day. At 4, when she brought in tea with cold biscuits and jam, to her horror, Henry was using a little screwdriver on the portrait of her and Max. She nearly screamed. What are you doing? I want to see something. Don't worry. I know how to do this. Aha! I was right. He held out the flat painting to her with no surrounding frame. See it? She was glad he hadn't damaged it with his tool. Bottom right, the signature. There was a symbol at the bottom, an HF. Those are the artist's initials. On the coffee table were some books written by Henry. He opened one to a watercolor of a cowboy on a bucking horse. In the lower right corner was the same HF signature. But your last name is Logan. Where's the L? He shrugged. I came up with that mark when I was quite young. I thought the HF was cool and I never changed it. She was staring at him. Henry, have you dreamed of that time? Were you there? No, he said, not like you, but I think I must have been on some level. Zach is reuniting with his past love, and I seem to remember things too. I want to go back, she said. Like I want to live. I want to return to Max and Alice and all of them. I want to have babies and cook and do all those things. She quit talking and went to sit on the floor by Henry. She needed to be close to someone who knew and understood. I think you will return, he said. There's a reason behind all of this, and I don't think it's finished. Me either. Yeah, she had hopes in her voice. But when? When you find out that reason, I think you'll go back. They both looked at Henry's bookcase. Was the answers in there? Did those books hold the key that would open the past again? Was something in them that would take her back? Where do I begin? Look at people. Marshall Earp was the catalyst the last time, so find someone else who's missing. That will be my quest. The use of Mac's word almost made her cry, but she didn't allow herself to break. She grabbed a book at random and began to read. It was late on the third search day, and she and Henry were reading. When she saw him grow pale, she jumped up. What do you need? I'm fine. How about some gin and tonic? That's a joke, right? No. Gin for me, but lots for you. You're so jumpy I can't concentrate. Sorry, she said, and her drink did sound good. In the kitchen, squeezing the lime made her remember the dinner party with Bert and Cornelia and Alice, and she made herself stop. Henry would say she was being impatient, but she was losing hope of ever seeing Max again. She started having flashes of what am I going to do with my life? Before Max, she'd been happy. Well, maybe a little lonely after Alicia and Philip and Nola moved out, but she wasn't unhappy. She had a good job and friends and her father and everything. Now all she saw was what was missing in her life. She took the drinks into Henry and they sipped them slowly. Etta was reading yet another book about Old West, bad guys and gals, and people who done things that formed the country. It was frustrating that she couldn't find anything or anyone who was missing. When her drink was finished and she was relaxed, Henry handed her a book open to chapter 12. He stuck a marker at a paragraph about Cheyenne Raft of 1868. It said that the battle was considered so insignificant that it was rarely mentioned in any history books. The Cheyenne had declared that they were going to clean out the cause. About 100 warriors, a third of them Arapahoes, paraded through Council Grove in full glorious regalia on their way to the attack. Some accounts said the nearby settlers hid in fear, and some said they watched from a distance. Whichever, there was a magnificent display of horsemanship accompanied by the war cries and valors of bullets and arrows. After 4 hours, the Cheyenne took a few Kanza horses, and the local merchants gave out sugar and coffee. Then everyone went home. In the end, 2 warriors, one Kanza and one Cheyenne, were wounded, but no one was killed. She handed the book back and looked hard at him. His face was solemn. What else do you want me to see? He handed her another book, again with the passage flagged. There was an almost verbatim repeat of the 1868 conflict, but this one added another incident to it. It said that the Cheyenne were angry that the Kaws had taken too many buffalo on their last hunt. On Sunday, May 14th, 1871, they returned to finish the job of cleaning them out, but this time they were successful. They killed all the Kanza in that one camp, including the chief and his family. Afterward, the Kanza, already depleted with smallpox, pneumonia, and lack of food and medicine, were on their way to extinction. The 1871 massacre almost eradicated the entire tribe. She looked at the cover of the book, then at Henry. That wasn't in there before. I read this whole book and scanned through it yesterday. There was no mention of a massacre in 1871. It's only a few sentences. It's easy to miss. He gave her a hard stare. It's history. It doesn't change. Etta stood up. I have proven that history is liquid. It can be changed. I changed it by putting Wyatt Earp back into the world. When Henry hesitated in reply, Etta's lips tightened. You don't believe me because you don't remember telling me that you never heard of the Marshal. But you did say it, and my father told me the same thing. He texted me even though it's gone now. Her eyes widened. Google had never heard of him. In that case, it has to be true. She glared at him. You're laughing at me. I can assure you that I'm not. Don't you see how horrible this is? I changed history in a bad way. Me and the knife Rufus gave me made this happen. I did it. Henry said, Perhaps. Etta gritted her teeth. Perhaps what? If this wasn't in the book when you read it before, maybe that means time is passing. Think about it. You're not there now, so maybe time has gone forward without you. That would mean Max and Alice are alone. They think I left them. It's what I feared so much. Her head came up. Wait a minute. If this has already happened and I wasn't there, then even if you went back, you couldn't change it. It's not like the lawman. That hadn't happened so you could rewrite history. But not now. You don't know what happened after you left or how long it's been or what date you'd arrive next time. You could show up in 1902 for all we know. We have no control over this thing. She dropped down on the chair. This horror was all my fault. I helped the buffalo. I must change it back. It's my responsibility. You mean you'll return and not help with the buffalo? How would that be possible? She put her hands over her face. I don't know what I mean. Maybe it was fate, kismet. Maybe you couldn't prevent it whether you're there or not. That's not right, she said. There has to be something I can do. I'd warn Lester. Whatever I had to do, I'd do it. Unless it has already happened, Henry said softly. He looked at her in sympathy. Sometimes I forget the energy and the beliefs of the power of the youth. Maybe you could have changed things. I think it would be great if you could. She looked at him. I'm very tired. I think I'll go to bed. What about you? Soon. I want to read a bit more. He gave her such a look of tenderness that she went to sit on the edge of the couch and put her hand on his chest. Henry, he stroked her hair. Yes, I know. You're the daughter I never had. He kissed her forehead. Go to bed and dream of your dear Max. I think it's time that you found him. So do I. She kissed his cheek, then stood up. I'll see you in the morning. I will always be with you. He said, remember that, always. They smiled at each other. Upstairs, Etta took a long, hot shower and washed her hair. When she got into Ben's childhood bed, she held the little iron bear tightly in her hand and went to sleep. Right away, she heard the clickety-clack of a train on the tracks. Etta gave a smile of such happiness that it went down to her very soul. Oh, that is cute. So, this chapter was full of information, historical information. but it seemed like she might go back to find out what actually happened after she left the first time. What y'all think? But anyway, I am going to say that, is she gonna find Max and them? Okay, I don't know. But anyway, sorry. That was that chapter. Chapter 17. It was raining hard as Zach made his way to the door of Henry's small house in the back. Zach hadn't been asleep for a day and a half, not since Henry sent him a PDF of the book he was writing. When Zach started it, he thought it was nice of Henry to use the names of real people. It was interesting to see how the people were portrayed, both past and present. He wasn't sure when he began to think the story was real. Was it when he read of the blacksmith and the bear, of the initials of the daughter's name? They were connected to what Zach had found buried by the stream. And Etta had said the sod house would be full of canned peaches, like Max in the story ate. It was late afternoon when Zach finished the book. There was something deep in his brain that was trying to find its way out, but he couldn't quite remember it. He made himself a sandwich and tried to forget what he'd read. It was too fascinating, too outrageous. If he thought it was true, he'd have to believe he was reincarnated of his ancestor Rufus. That they both had leg injuries was just a coincidence. And then there was Freddie. True, he just met her, and he did feel like he'd known her forever. But that happened to a lot of people. It was not some cock and bull story of reincarnation. And it was ridiculous that a nice girl like Freddie had worked in the Red Dog Saloon as he poured himself a beer, he tried to clear his mind. Writers wrote about what they knew, didn't they? That's what Henry and Etta had done. Henry was an expert historian and Etta could cook. It all worked. It was as Zach started to sit down that he remembered what was bothering him. There was a book written by a family member. He read it when he was a kid. Why was he remembering it now? What was in it that made him think of it? He called his father and asked about the book. Yes, his dad remembered it and knew where it was. I'll be there in about 30 minutes, Zach said and hung up. That had been an hour ago, and now he was outside Henry's door waiting to show him the book. Henry was still dressed and looked like he hadn't been to bed. What y'all think the book is? He stepped back and Zach went inside. He pulled a plastic wrapped package from under his raincoat. I went to Ottawa and got this from my dad. He held up a thin black book. It was written and self-published by my great-grand uncle in 1923. The front says that only 20 copies were printed and they were given to family and friends. I haven't looked at it in years. I came straight here because there's something in it. I'm not sure what. It's just a vague memory. He handed the book to Henry, who flipped through it quickly, then abruptly halted. As he read, his eyes widened. Then he collapsed into a chair. Are you okay? Zach asked, and Henry nodded. What does it say? Henry looked up. He seemed to have aged. We can't let her go back. Zach snatched the book from him and read. Can't let her go back? Why? I was told there was a failed attempt to prevent a massacre of the Kansas in 1871. It wasn't reported at the time, but a white woman was among those killed. She was the wife of a prominent landowner, and her body was taken away before the cavalry and the press arrived. I've never read any accounts that said she was there. I only know what my 93-year-old grandfather Rufus told me. His memory was usually quite accurate, but it may have been off about this. We can't let her return, Henry said again. Zach saw his worry. I'm not sure what you wrote about Etta's dream is true, but if she's killed in the past, wouldn't she just wake up here, alive and well? Henry frowned. I'm afraid I'm not an expert of time travel. You know anyone we can call and ask? Zach knew when he was being told off. You're right. The best thing is if we don't let her go back. She's in the house upstairs, right? We'll just explain things, then she'll stay here. Henry heaved himself up out of the chair. I haven't known Etta long, but I can assure you that if she reads this, it will make her even more determined to return. And I've seen the bruises her so-called dreams did to her body. A death in 1871 just might play forward, and I don't want to risk it. Zach thought about what Henry said. So let's do what we must to keep her here. This should be easy, Henry said with sarcasm. They went into the big house together. Then, against Zach's protest, Henry went up the stairs with him. Etta was curled up in her bed sleeping. Etta, Zach said, you need to wake up. There was no response from her. He took her shoulders and lifted her. Her head fell back, but she didn't wake. He yelled. There was no response. We should call an ambulance. No, Henry said. She'll sleep wherever she is. I'll stay here with her and monitor her breathing. If it slows down, we'll call. He saw that Zach was hesitating. In her state, and with that virus in the air, I don't want to risk it. Zach didn't seem to know what to do. She looks happy. I think she's probably very happy. She's with Max. For a while. Then she will. The men looked at each other. Why don't you go get us something to eat? Henry said. Etta, fill the fridge. Okay. When Zach got downstairs, he saw the little black book. Henry had brought it up into the house and left it on the table. When Zach picked it up, it fell onto his back. The first thing he saw was a footnote. Grandpa Rufus said the published date of 1871 massacre was off by days. He said the wrong date was printed. Everyone quoted it as the 14th, but it really happened on the 19th. Grandpa said that's why the woman's attempt to prevent it failed and why she was killed. I didn't include this in my account because it makes no sense. A wrong date given after the event wouldn't matter, but as I said, Grandpa was very old. Zach bounded up the stairs 2 at a time and thrust the book at Henry. When he finished reading it, he was shaken. He was in a chair by Etta's bedside. She went on the date the newspaper said and it took place, Henry said in disgust, but it didn't. Not on Sunday, but on the following Friday. Somehow, Etta found out when it was really about to happen, Zach said, and she went alone, Henry said. She wasn't able to prevent the tragedy, and she was killed along with everyone else. He took her hand in both of his. Etta, he said loudly, do not go alone. Take Max with you. Not alone. Do you hear me? Yeah, Max, Zach said. He pulled the chair to the other side of the bed and took Etta's hand in his. Take Max. He'll protect you. And maybe he'll talk some sense into you, Henry said in disgust. Yeah, that too, Zach added. Henry squeezed her hand. Do not go alone. Do you understand me? Not alone. They didn't leave Etta's side. Wow. So Etta possibly might die. They definitely got to get back into the dream to see what happens, right? Because we don't want Etta to die. Don't we want Etta and Max to get together? Happy ever after, right? But that's the end of chapter 17. We shall find out what's going to happen in the next chapter. Bye for now.